Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on Swish City. I want to say shout out to everyone that's been tuning into the videos and keeping up with it. I really do appreciate all the support you guys been sending. We're just restarting the channel, and we're going to be diving into some new topics, talking about the NBA as a whole. In recent videos, we talked about the Pelicans' injuries. Yesterday's video, we talked about the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're a team no one is talking about. But today, we're going to be discussing a team that everybody is harping on, and a team that needs to make changes in the foreseeable future, or else this could be a disaster season coming upon them. And that team, as we see from the title and from the thumbnail, we can see is the Milwaukee Bucks, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. Unfortunately, I did not believe in the Bucks this season. I said they were going to be a 6 seed in the Eastern Conference, and I thought that was pretty fair. And some people might have said that I was too low on the Bucks, saying you need to wait and see how they look at the beginning of the season. And we've seen how they looked at the beginning of the season, ladies and gentlemen. And as we can see with this record here, they are 2-8 in the Eastern Conference. This screenshot is courtesy from yesterday, so there have been some changes in the starting line in the standings, but the Bucks still are 2-8. They're still at the bottom of that Eastern Conference, and there are still a lot of things wrong with this roster here. So we're going to dive in. We're going to look at some things that have worked out, haven't worked out for this Bucks team, and ultimately what the overall goal is for this Bucks team as of right now and how things could shape up for their future as well. So welcome back to Swiss City. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. Let's get into it all. And like I said, we want to look at this Bucks team. We can see that Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard are doing their thing. The duo, the star tandem, one that didn't have the greatest chemistry last season, is really coming together and looking perfect this season. We're seeing Damian Lillard really take over as that scoring guard for the Bucks that they were really missing last season, and Giannis doing Giannis things once again, barreling and pushing his way down to the rim, scoring and being that relentless force at the basket. And I've seen from numerous games from watching this Bucks team that both of these players are locked in, they're ready to go, but it's everyone else around side them. And unfortunately for the Bucks, they've had to deal with some injuries, so their third best player is not available. But other players that are needed to step up and needed to deliver when those type of players go down haven't been able to do that. If we want to look at the scoring and the output, obviously, as we can see, it's a clear drop off after Giannis and Damian Lillard's 25 points per averages. You see the next highest point is 12 and a half coming from Bobby Portis, who is a key impact player off the bench offensively for this Bucks team, but defensively hasn't looked the greatest. Lopez has had some flashes here and there with this Bucks team after a little bit of a weird season last year. Obviously, 2 seasons ago, being in the Defensive Player of the Year candidacy, looking like one of the better bigs in the NBA, but then taking a little step back last season. We've seen some nice improvements from Torian Prince as well in this offense, and some rising stuff out of Andre Jackson Jr. and some of these youngins from this Bucks team. But unfortunately, some of these older guys that do hold some positions just have not been able to really let these guys flourish and succeed. AJ Green also as well been one of their better younger players on this roster, and that's what the Bucks really need to see come to life, is some of these youngins be able to get that practice and get those reps. If we want to look at the shooting stats as well, shooting splits as a team, we can see that the Bucks as a total team are shooting 72% from the free throw, 35% from three, and 47% from the field as a team. Giannis, Damian Lillard holding their own, Bobby Portis doing pretty solid as well from the shooting percentages. AJ Green, this team is shooting pretty decently, just defensively haven't been there and haven't had that third star to really kind of shine and take over for this team. And like I mentioned, obviously Chris Middleton being hurt is definitely an issue, but Chris Middleton, which we'll get into in a little bit, in my opinion, isn't even a player that I think could take this team out of these depths and push them into a contending team in the Eastern Conference. I think at best, with how this season has kind of started out already, if the Bucks don't make some moves, they could be sitting themselves near the play-in or possibly at the low end of the playoffs. And if that's the case for this Milwaukee Bucks team, that is not good for the franchise and for Giannis Antetokounmpo, because that could mean a trade could be in the future for their superstar. So let's dive in and let's look at some of these key things that are happening with this Bucks team. Like I mentioned, Not only has Giannis Antetokounmpo been balling out and looking very, very solid for this team, but he's their superstar. And unfortunately for Giannis, the previous 2 seasons he's dealt with injuries in which the Bucks have been first round exit. But if the Bucks do have Giannis, if they do have this roster ready to go, they are competent and they are competing. But the Bucks, who have yet to see an Eastern Conference Finals appearance since they made the NBA Finals, could see some changes coming to their roster in the foreseeable future. Now, that could be with Giannis, as well as the rumors have already sparked with Giannis possibly being on the trade market and possibly asking out. But I don't think that that is likely this season. I think that the Bucks will want to keep Giannis and do everything in their power to make sure that their franchise player and player they believe in, a top 3 player in the NBA when healthy, can honestly change the landscape of the game. And if they get enough star power and players around him to succeed, I think we can see this Bucks team do another flip. But the only problem with that is they have older players to trade and they don't have a lot of draft capital. So putting a lot of players around Giannis Antetokounmpo may be the difficult task. But if the Bucks are able to do so, they should go out and do so because he's one of the better players. If not, people forget how dominant Giannis can be on both sides of the floor. Like I said, top 3 player in the NBA when healthy, for sure. And speaking of dominant Bucks, let's talk about his running mate in Damian Lillard, who's also been off to a hot start now. Damian Lillard is entering concussion protocol, so we'll be dealing with some stuff here. But Lillard has been lights out shooting for this Bucks squad. If we want to look at Lillard's shooting stats, 44% from the field, 35% from three, and 91% from free throw, making around three threes a game on 9 attempts is solid efficiency from Damian Lillard, and something that Bucks fans really want to see out of this guard in this duo is having Giannis obviously being that barrel and that bull down flow and forcing the paint. But when that shot's not going, or if they could wall him up a little bit, if he can have those outside shooters to stick and hit like Damian Lillard, it is key for their success. And we haven't really seen this duo look at its full perfection. Obviously, they had some injuries, but I do think that Dame and Giannis can work alongside each other. Damian Lillard is a little bit older. Giannis is a little bit older, so it might be a little bit out of reach for fans to really buy into, but I truly believe that this core can win stuff in Milwaukee if they had the right pieces. And that gets into the next part here, which is kind of talking about these pieces. Unfortunately for Chris Middleton, he has yet to suit up for this Bucks team, and they are 2-8 on the season without their third best player. And Chris Middleton also had ankle surgery on both ankles last offseason. So, in my humble opinion, I'm not that high on Chris Middleton, and I'm not really believing that much in Chris Middleton coming into this season for the Bucks. Like I said, Giannis, Damian Lillard have looked solid for this team, but Middleton is going to be tasked to be that third scorer. We saw him look good throughout the playoffs in the first round with Giannis out, so maybe I am being a little over too reactive. But Chris Middleton can't even play in back-to-backs for the Bucks, and that's one thing I stress heavily, as we see with another player in the NBA, in Al Horford, who cannot play in back-to-backs. Well, Al Horford for the Celtics is their sixth man, their sixth best player on the roster, and only starts in some instances where Kristaps Porzingis is hurt. Now, obviously, with the Celtics dealing with an injury for KP, this will hinder them a little bit more. But obviously, your sixth best player compared to your third best player not playing at back to backs is a huge difference. And for the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that can compete against the Boston Celtics and has competed against the Boston Celtics in both of their contests this season, but have lost big leads going into the second half with some defensive collapses and not having their third star. That is some key issues to see. And if Middleton can't step up and can't deliver as that third star, even when they are healthy and fully back together, then that is going to be a clear issue. Another issue with this Bucks team as well is discussing their head coach in Doc Rivers, who I think is one of the main areas of concern with this team. Adrian Griffin was viewed as the obviously scapegoat for this squad, saying that obviously he wasn't the right fit for a head coach. He was fired from the Bucks halfway through the season, and Doc Rivers has a worse record than Adrian Griffin does at this very moment than Adrian Griffin did when he was coaching the Bucks, and yet he is still the head coach of this team. Yet he was giving tips for head coaching this team behind the scenes when he was working at ESPN. Let me know how this was happening. I do not know. Unfortunately for the Bucks, they're stuck with Doc Rivers, and they have Darvin Ham as their assistant head coach. So, oh God, will the Milwaukee Bucks have some fun and turmoil? I think a coaching change is also necessarily needed to kind of awaken some of these players and kind of bring out what the Bucks fans want. The Bucks fans want to see youth. They want to see young kids out there. They want to see some of their other players like AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr., who have been able to kind of bring some life for this team. And unfortunately for the Bucks, it might be a little too late, as they're also trying to look to trade other young star in Marjon Beauchamp. And Beauchamp has been a name centered around this Bucks team, as he's eligible for extension as a young player who hasn't been able to reach his top potential. But for the Milwaukee Bucks, for them, it is very difficult to trade a player in Beauchamp, as he is not a player with a lot of experience, with NBA experience underneath his belt. So, with these teams kind of believing in him, they don't have a lot to showcase from his skill set. And also, B is the Bucks don't have a lot of draft capital, ladies and gentlemen. If we want to look at what the Bucks have in incoming draft picks, they only have picks in 2031, and that is their closest pick, ladies and gentlemen. They are fresh out of picks from doing these trades for Drew Holiday and then bringing in Damian Lillard and doing all of this, they are out of draft picks. So for the Bucks to even to facilitate some of these trades, they have to give up on key young players. And some of these young players are key players that they have on their roster on veteran minimum contracts or not a lot of able contracts, or it's some of their up tier players like Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, Chris Middleton, and even if you are trying to trade some of those players, they are valuable to their team. And are you going to get the same value back if you're giving up said player to another franchise? Who knows? And that's the kind of question that runs into this Bucks team: is what is the outcome and what is the overall solution? Is it firing head coach Doc Rivers? Is it going with a new head coach and new regime? Is it looking at this roster and realizing that they are too old and not built for a championship and deconstructing it around Giannis and saying, hey, Giannis, can you wait a season so that we can get this thing fully primed for you? Or is it just too little too late? And at the end of the year, Giannis realizes after 3 first round exits, or not maybe not even making the playoffs this year, that his time in Milwaukee is over. He is done, and it is time for him to set his sights on a new destination, a new home in quest for an NBA championship, where he knows all 30 teams that are able to get him, if a team is available, will throw everything in their power to make him their superstar. I think that that is a likely case, but not until next season. I think for the Bucks, it's ultimately just a repatch year so far. Tried to make everything work with Giannis, but ultimately, if you see a first round exit from this Bucks team, I do think Giannis will be gone at the end of the year. If the Bucks do somehow change some things, if Middleton does come back, he does look solid, they are to re-awake themselves and are to make a push in this Eastern Conference, then I still think some things change. Maybe some minor edges could be moved, but with a 2-8 start, with Doc Rivers as your head coach, and with no foreseeable return for Chris Middleton at the moment, I think all of those answers are given to us on this Bucks team, and I do think that the writing is on the wall for their championship window. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. How do you guys feel about this Bucks team? How do you guys feel about the NBA in general? Giannis, where do you think he'll end up? Drop down all your thoughts in the comments. You guys have been absolutely fantastic in showing your love and support, and I'm really, really appreciative. Once again, I'm Bruce Veliz. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode here on Swish City, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out.